Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. In my previous life, I scrimped and saved to put my boyfriend, James, through college. He was deeply moved, swearing over and over that he would marry me after graduation. He even took my first time. But when graduation came, he suddenly broke up with me and turned around to marry a girl from the city. Devastated, I crashed his wedding and smashed everything I could lay my hands on. He accused me of ruining his perfect day. Afraid that I might go insane and destroy his future, he hired someone to run me over. Now I've been reborn. At this moment, he has just registered for the college entrance exam and is worried about tuition. Emily, why are you worrying? Just focus on the exam. I'll handle the tuition, he said. James stood before me, his face full of worry. You know I'm good at studying. If I take the exam, I'll definitely pass. It's just my family is poor. I stared at his slightly tanned yet undeniably handsome face, my body trembling uncontrollably. In my previous life, he had indeed registered for the college entrance exam but was worried about the tuition fees if he passed. So he came to me to complain about his troubles. University students were rare and precious in the 1980s. Knowing his academic potential, I couldn't bear to see him troubled over money. I readily agreed to cover his tuition and living expenses for 4 years. Yet, after all my efforts, when he graduated, he sent me a letter breaking up with me. I couldn't believe it and went to confront him, only to be thrown out. Don't you know your place? He sneered. I'm a college graduate now. How could a village girl like you ever match me? That day, he was in the middle of his wedding to a rich city girl. He threw $10 at my face and had people chase me away. I was left with no options and caused a scene at his wedding. He thought I had humiliated him and ruined his big day. Afraid I would continue to trouble him, he had his mother wait for me on the road back to the village and arranged for me to be hit by a car. It was the 1980s and there weren't even surveillance cameras in the village. A death was just a death. My body wasn't discovered until a month later, already decomposed beyond recognition. The villagers assumed I had slipped and fallen while walking in the hills. The village chief had someone bury me, and the matter was left at that. Now my fists clenched tightly as I stared at the repulsive face in front of me. The fury buried deep in my heart erupted like a raging fire. Emily, did you hear me? He said, his face full of urgency as he reached out to embrace me. Disgusted, I instinctively dodged his touch. He froze for a moment and cautiously asked, Emily, what's wrong? I coldly glared at him. In my previous life, I found out after my death that his family's supposed inability to afford tuition was all an act. Their real plan was to save their money for his younger brother, Tommy, who had been in a 3-year relationship. The family decided to allocate their funds to help Tommy marry instead, believing that as a college graduate, James's future would be bright and finding a wife for him later wouldn't be an issue. I, the fool, was their target. They tricked me into financing his education, promising he'd treat me well and marry me once he graduated. I gave him everything only to end up dead. Now that I've been given a second chance, I'll make sure they suffer a fate worse than death. With that thought, I sneered coldly and questioned him. Can't afford tuition? I heard your mom is saving money to pay for Tommy's bride price. $1,000, right? That's more than enough for tuition. It could cover several years of living expenses. So how could you possibly have no money for tuition? Cold sweat instantly dripped down James's face. He stammered, Emily, how do you know about that? He looked down, guilty and flustered. It's true they are saving up for Tommy's bride price, but it's because Lily's brother is pressuring him to bring out the money, or else she'll break up with him. Tommy is useless. If Lily leaves him, where would he ever find another girlfriend? My mother was planning to deliver the bride price money to Tommy in the next few days, thinking it was better to formalize the engagement between him and Lily to ensure she wouldn't leave him. James avoided my gaze, his eyes darting nervously, and he didn't even dare lift his head. I stared at him unrelenting until sweat began to beat and drip from his tense forehead. Suddenly I couldn't help but laugh out loud. I reached out and patted the back of his hand reassuringly. Don't worry, I said earnestly. As long as you get into college, I'll eat scraps and go hungry if I have to, but I'll make sure you can study. He froze for a moment, then a flash of joy crossed his eyes. Really? But the bride price for Lily, that money will definitely go to Lily. I replied with a comforting smile. I'll take responsibility. After all, the oldest sister-in-law is like a mother. Once we're family, it's only right for me to help out. Then, as if a thought had just struck me, I added, by the way, since the bride price is for your brother to get married, what if Lily takes the money and runs? Wouldn't it be better to have some kind of assurance? Maybe she should get pregnant with a child from your family sooner rather than later. James hesitated briefly, but a glint of determination quickly replaced his doubt. That's simple, he said. I'll have my brother lure her to our house a few times. That'll take care of it. I smiled faintly, but my fists clenched so tightly that my fingertips turned white. In my previous life, James's mother had planned to have me killed by running me over while Lily distracted the villagers at the other end of town. They were all banking on James making a name for himself in the city so he could bring them along to live a better life. They were terrified that I would ruin his future and shatter their family's dreams of wealth. This time, none of them would escape unscathed. After I gave James a firm reply, he left satisfied. The moment he was gone, all the strength drained from my body. I collapsed onto the ground back then in order to support his college education. I endured countless hardships. I even moved to the city and took a dishwashing job near his university to earn more money. When I handed him the money in person, he told me not to show up again, saying my presence would distract him from his studies. So I stopped going to see him. Instead, I saved up every penny and sent it to him. City rents were expensive and I didn't have much money. I ended up sharing a crowded apartment with some aunts who were also working in the city. Every day I walked 2 hours to and from work because I didn't dare spend money on bus fare. I felt that every cent I spent meant one less meal for James. I believed that once he graduated and became successful, I would finally live a life of comfort. It was that hope that sustained me for 4 long years. When he finally graduated, I heard he had landed a job at a newspaper. I was filled with anticipation, thinking he would come to marry me. But instead, I found out he was getting married to the daughter of the newspaper's editor-in-chief. The news hit me like a bolt of lightning. I rushed to his wedding, causing a huge scene and smashing everything I could. In the end, he handed me $10 and told his people to send me back where I came from. I stared at the flimsy $10 bill in my hands, feeling as if the world was spinning. Over the past 4 years, I had spent more than $800 on his tuition alone, not to mention the living expenses. He had told me he needed to eat well to avoid being looked down upon by his classmates. I had suffered for 4 years, and all I got in return was a single meaningless bill. Back then, in order to convince me to support him, he had sworn and promised that he would marry me as soon as he graduated. He had even tricked me into giving him my first time. Thinking about my past self, my nose stung and tears flowed uncontrollably. How could I have been so foolish for a man? I deserved everything I had suffered. Wiping away my tears, I pulled a few books from the cabinet. In my previous life, I had gone to the city and bought him several college entrance exam prep books as a birthday gift, but there was no need to give him those gifts now. I washed my hands, sat down, and began flipping through the books. The content wasn't unfamiliar to me. In my last life, I had worried that once James graduated, the gap between us would grow too wide. After work, I would hide under my blanket, eating stale bread while studying these books. Whenever I came across something I didn't understand, I'd wait for a free moment during dishwashing breaks. I took the books to the store and asked the college students working part-time there. Each one of them was eager to help, patiently explaining whenever I had questions. Back then, I thought that when James and I got married in the future, he would realize that I wasn't just some clueless village girl. Surely he would be pleasantly surprised. But now I feel grateful to my past self. Even though I had to die once, I paved the way for a better life. This time I borrowed a bicycle from my aunt next door and rode straight to the county high school. When I arrived, I saw my homeroom teacher, Mr. Carter, cleaning the classroom. He nearly jumped when he saw me. "Emily, didn't you drop out of school? Did you forget something?" In my previous life, I had quit school to support James's education. Before I dropped out, my grades had actually been better than his. However, during that time, many girls didn't continue studying past high school. Some supported their boyfriend's education, while others worked to help their families or younger siblings. Mr. Carter had been particularly regretful about my decision. Girls were already a minority in our class, and I had consistently been one of the top students. When he found out I was quitting school to support James, he sighed repeatedly but ultimately signed my withdrawal form without saying much. Hearing the surprise in his voice now, I smiled at him. "Mr. Carter, is it too late to take back my withdrawal?" The application had just been submitted the day before. If it hadn't been officially processed yet, I wouldn't even need to reverse it. I could simply continue attending classes. I was 2 years younger than James and currently a freshman in high school. If I re-enrolled now, I'd still have over 2 years before the college entrance exams. There was plenty of time to catch up. I looked at him expectantly, and he, in turn, seemed overjoyed. His face lit up, and with trembling hands, he pulled a crumpled withdrawal form from his pocket. "I haven't submitted it yet. Are you sure about this? Once you decide, you can't change your mind again." "I'm sure," I said quickly, taking the form and tearing it in half before tossing it into the trash. I had thought it through. The teacher's college had free tuition, wasn't too far from home, and was the best fit for me. In my previous life, James attended the architecture university across the street from the teacher's college. This time I wanted to see how he would fare without me. With the re-enrollment sorted, I finally felt relieved. As I was leaving the school, I spotted James walking out of another building with a group of classmates, pushing his bicycle. It was too late to avoid him. He had already noticed me. "Emily, what are you doing here?" He looked surprised. "Didn't you drop out?" Panic rose in me. I hadn't planned on letting him know about my return to school. If he found out that I no longer intended to support him and was already planning ahead for my own future, wouldn't that ruin my second chance? In a flash, I came up with an excuse. "I'm working nearby," I said. "Working?" His brows furrowed, and he gave me a once-over, his eyes scanning me from head to toe. "Why aren't you staying in the village? What are you doing here?" I forced a calm smile and blushed, pretending to be shy. "The pay here is better. I thought it would also give me a chance to get used to city life. We get married, I'll have to live in the city eventually. It's good to adjust in advance, right?" "Married?" One of his classmates raised an eyebrow in surprise. A flicker of irritation crossed James's face. He quickly pulled me aside and lowered his voice. "Don't say things like that in public. I'm preparing for college. If people find out I have a girlfriend, it won't reflect well on me." I nodded obediently, though internally I rolled my eyes. Admitting to having a fiancé was suddenly embarrassing for him. Back when he begged me to support his education, swearing he'd marry me as soon as he graduated, he hadn't seemed the least bit ashamed. "Go back to the village," he said curtly. I gave him a faint smile, nodded again, and turned away. But inside I was seething. This time I wouldn't let him take advantage of me so easily. James handed me $1 for travel expenses and added coldly, "Consider this a loan. Don't come back again." After that day, I didn't see James anymore. With only a month left before the college entrance exams, he stayed at school every day, not even returning home on weekends. To avoid running into him, I used the excuse that my family was busy with farm work and needed more hands. I requested to study at home for the month since I was only a freshman and still far from taking the exams, and my grades were already excellent. The teachers eventually agreed after I promised I wouldn't let my performance drop. They gave me a pile of practice books and made me promise to complete every single problem before letting me leave. During the day, I worked in the fields, and at night I returned home to study. During this time, I ran into James's mother several times. She saw me working hard in the fields and assumed I was saving money for her son's tuition. Her face lit up with a delighted smile, and she even encouraged me to keep at it, saying, "You'll enjoy the good life later thanks to him." Life passed in this way, uneventful and unremarkable. Soon enough, the college entrance exams were over. On the afternoon of the last day, James's mother and the rest of his family stood eagerly by the edge of the field, waiting with bated breath. Their faces were shiny with sweat, and the scorching sun had turned their skin greasy, but their excitement was palpable. Finally, James appeared in the distance, riding his large bicycle with a broad smile he couldn't contain. His voice rang out even before he got close. "I nailed it. I finished everything. I'm definitely going to pass this time." He brushed past me without even sparing a glance, heading straight for his mother and younger brother, Tommy. Tommy, this time it's a done deal. Go kill a chicken tonight. We'll celebrate properly. His mother beamed with pride at his words, her face lighting up with joy. I told you, didn't I? My son is so outstanding. Of course he'll get into college. Tommy chimed in with a grin. When you make it in the city, don't forget to bring us along. Even Lily, standing next to Tommy, gazed at James with admiration. A month passed, and while Lily showed no signs of pregnancy, she had already pocketed the bride price. Tommy pressed her to get married, but she always found excuses, saying her family was busy preparing for her brother's wedding, and that they could discuss their plans after things settled down. This made Tommy somewhat dissatisfied, but he couldn't say much. He simply made excuses to take Lily to the woods every so often, a fact that didn't escape the villagers. If it weren't for the fact that James was about to become a college student, the villagers' gossip would have drowned their family in ridicule. James's confident declarations about his future made his family a temporary sensation in the village. His mother paraded her pride everywhere, holding a bag of sunflower seeds as she bragged to anyone who would listen. Is your kid taking the entrance exams? Look at my James. He's so accomplished. It's all about bringing honor to the family. And don't say your child isn't good at studying. How would you know if you don't push them? Studying is simple. My James has never given me a moment's trouble. He'll get into college effortlessly. She then added, her tone dripping with self-importance. If your kid struggles, my James can tutor them. Only $3 an hour. It's cheaper than hiring someone from outside. And my James is a future college student. At the time, the average monthly wage in the city was only about $30. Charging $3 an hour was outrageous. First, the villagers tolerated her out of politeness, but as time went on, they grew annoyed. They could hear the condescension in her tone and began slamming their doors shut whenever she approached. When no one in the village would entertain her anymore, she visited a family with a mentally challenged son and said, "Your boy may be slow, but he's got a strong will. Who knows? Maybe with enough pushing, he'll become the village scholar. He does well. Don't forget to thank my James for inspiring him." That family, fed up, chased her off with a broom. Realizing she'd run out of people to impress, she went to a neighboring village to boast about how even her slow James managed to get into college. The neighbor's son, who was in the same year as James and also a freshman in high school, had plenty of time before the college entrance exams. When James's mother boasted about his success, the neighbor lost patience and snapped back. "What nonsense are you spouting? My son is just as good as yours, if not better. Get lost." She shoved James's mother out and slammed the door shut. James's mother stood outside with her hands on her hips, fuming. "They're just jealous because my James is going to college. Just wait until he makes it big in the city. You'll all come begging me for favors." On the day the exam results were released, the news spread early in the morning. Someone dashed into the village, shivering from the cold but with excitement all over their face. They ran straight to James and announced breathlessly, "You did it, James. You passed the school call." The results, even though James had expected a good score, made his hands tremble uncontrollably at the news. "All right, I'm going now," he said, barely able to contain his excitement. Not long after, he returned, sharing the news that he had scored 536 points, 36 points above the admission cutoff for universities. Getting into the architecture school he aimed for was practically guaranteed. Hearing this, James's mother immediately straightened her back and grinned so widely it looked like her face might split. "Didn't I tell you my son would make us proud? He's the glory of the family." She cast a disdainful glance at the envious faces around her. "That's why it's not about how many sons you have. It's about their quality. If they're just going to stay in the village farming, what's the point? Might as well raise cattle instead." The villagers, initially envious, rolled their eyes and dispersed after hearing her condescending remark. James's mother didn't care. She strutted through the village every day, bragging about James's success and casually slipping in praise for her younger son Tommy. She even mentioned how proud she was of Tommy for getting Lily pregnant before they were married, despite it being frowned upon. After all, having a son-in-law whose family included a college student brought prestige to their family. Lily had just discovered her pregnancy, and though it wasn't ideal, the family was thrilled. James's mother sent Tommy to town to buy some items and began planning a formal proposal for next month. As for James, it seemed he had completely forgotten about me. When the exam results came out, James's school awarded him a substantial scholarship. He took the money, rented a private gaming console at an arcade, and spent most of his time in town, rarely coming back to the village. When he finally did return, it was only 10 days before the university semester started. He arrived on a cart loaded with bags and packages, stepping off and proudly announcing, "I've got my acceptance letter here, along with all the good stuff I bought in the city." He showed off his gifts: cigarettes and liquor for his father, canned fruit and sugar for his mother, a wristwatch for Tommy, and a tape recorder with candies for Lily. He even brought back a sewing machine for his mother, carried on a rented tricycle. His mother was ecstatic, holding the watch aloft for everyone to see. "Look at how thoughtful my son is. He got into college and still remembered to buy us gifts. Just wait. Once he's successful in the city, he'll make sure our family prospers." When all the gifts were distributed, a neighbor who was familiar with my situation asked James, "Didn't you bring anything for Emily? She's been working hard in the fields, saving money for you. Couldn't you at least get her some hand cream or something?" James looked puzzled and replied dismissively, "Why would I buy anything for her? She's not part of my family. Why waste money on her?" After organizing his belongings and resting briefly, James hopped on the bike he bought for Tommy and pedaled over to my house. He arrived panting and called out, "Emily, look what I brought for you." He placed the bright red university acceptance letter in front of me. "What do you think? Impressive, right? I told you sticking with me means you'll enjoy the good life someday." I glanced at him coldly before turning away. "Why are you here?" James hesitated slightly, taken aback by my reaction. "I came to see you. School's starting soon, and I'll be leaving for the city. We won't get to see each other much anymore." I interrupted him sharply. "We've already broken up. You can leave now." He froze, grabbing my wrist. "Broken up? Since when? I didn't hear anything about that." I couldn't help but sneer. "We didn't break up. A month without seeing each other. And it's an unspoken breakup. It's been almost 4 months now. We've been done for a while. I was preparing for the college entrance exams," he exclaimed, his face flushing red. His voice grew louder as he continued, "And I did it all for you. Once I graduate, you can come with me to the city and live the good life." I scoffed, crossing my arms. "Live the good life? You didn't even bother to buy me anything when you came back. How can I expect you to give me anything in the future?" Annoyed, I stood up, signaling for him to leave. "Go now. You're a college student. Lingering here too long doesn't look good. I wanted to buy you something," he stammered quickly, standing up and fumbling for an excuse. "But I was worried you wouldn't like it. How about this? When I get to the city, I'll buy you whatever you want, anything you ask for." I rolled my eyes at him. "Are you leaving or not? If you don't, I'll call someone over." Realizing I wasn't joking, he panicked. "But what about my tuition? You have to give me the money." I yanked my hand out of his grip. "Go ask your mom." James had assumed that I would support his education without question, so he had already spent every penny of the scholarship money he received from school. He had even used the money to buy gifts for his family and show them off in the village. When he returned home dejectedly, his mother immediately sensed something was wrong. After some questioning, she found out that I had broken up with him. She was stunned. The family didn't have much money left. Most of it had already been spent on Lily's bride price, and the rest had been taken by Tommy to buy supplies for his upcoming proposal. With only 10 days left before school started, even if Tommy didn't buy the proposal gifts, it still wasn't enough to cover James's tuition. Panicked, his mother paced around the house before deciding to ask the village head for a loan. After all, having a college student in the village was a prestigious affair, and she thought the village head would feel obligated to help. Convinced it was a good idea, she didn't waste a minute and went straight to his house. The village head's grandson had also been accepted into a technical college this year, and they were hosting a celebratory banquet in their yard. When she arrived breathless, James's mother put on her best smile and cautiously explained her request. She expected the village head to contribute something, but instead, he snorted coldly. I told you to apply to a technical college back then, but you refused. Now that you've gotten into university, you suddenly want to borrow money." The village head had been holding a grudge against James ever since his grandson asked to borrow James's notes in high school and was refused. Adding to that, James's excellent exam results had always made the village head feel envious and resentful. When the college applications were being submitted, he had tried to persuade James to apply to the same technical college as his grandson, but James's mother had mocked him for it. Later, when the exam results came out and his grandson's score was far below James's, the village head felt humiliated. Now, seeing James's family come to ask for money, he felt he had finally regained some dignity. "You think technical colleges aren't good enough for your son?" the village head snapped, glaring at her. "If that's the case, why are you even here? Get out of my house before your prestigious college student ruins the atmosphere of my celebration." "No, wait, please," James's mother begged, stomping her feet and shouting at the door, but the village head ignored her and slammed the door shut. With no other options, she shamelessly climbed over the wall into the yard. Since many influential villagers and close acquaintances of the village head were attending the banquet, she figured someone might be willing to lend her money. Standing awkwardly in the courtyard, she plastered a smile on her face and earnestly explained her situation, her tone as humble as possible. Despite her efforts, all she received were sneers and mocking remarks. "If you don't have money, why bother sending him to university? What's the point of studying if you can't afford it?" someone jeered, causing the crowd to burst into laughter. "How is it better for me to lend you money than to buy myself an old ox?" one villager scoffed, eyeing James's mother with disdain. "Your son is smart, all right. Spent all his scholarship money on gifts for your family, and now turns to us for tuition. What's your plan? To send a college student through school without spending a cent yourselves?" Another villager chimed in. "Exactly. Your family struts around like royalty, and we're supposed to eat scraps to fund James's education. If we lend you money, should we expect it back or not? You pay us back and James graduates, becomes a village official, and then holds it against us. What then? But if you don't pay it back, why should we give you money in the first place? Your son didn't learn for nothing. He's clearly good at accounting." Laughter erupted around them, making James's mother's face flush with embarrassment. Flustered, she stammered, "It's not like it's free. There will be interest. And if James settles down in the city and moves your whole family there, how are we supposed to collect interest then?" Unable to endure the ridicule any longer, James's mother stormed off, humiliated. On her way home, she encountered a group of people she often used to boast to. With no other options, she swallowed her pride and asked them for a loan, only to be met with jeers. Well, isn't this the family with a fancy bicycle, a tape recorder, and a sewing machine? Meanwhile, we can't even afford a sewing machine of our own. How can we possibly lend you money? Why don't you ask the people who can afford to pay for tutoring at $3 an hour? Surely they won't mind covering a little tuition for you. Or better yet, have James tutor people around the clock. He could save up the tuition in 10 days if he really works hard." Her face turned red and white with fury and frustration. She wanted to lash out at them but held back, knowing she couldn't afford to alienate anyone further. Instead, she glared at them and spat out, "Fine. If you won't lend me money, plenty of others will. My son is a college student. People will be lining up to help us." Despite her bravado, she returned home empty-handed. She spent the entire night pacing the house, unable to sleep. The next morning, in a desperate move, she went to the neighboring village to ask the family with a mentally challenged son for help, but they had already heard the gossip. Before she even reached their doorstep, they drove her away with a broom. "Get lost," the man of the house shouted. "My son may be slow, but I'm saving every penny to make him the next village scholar. You've got a lot of nerve coming here to ask for money. Get out of here and don't come back." By the time James's mother returned home, she was seething. She vented her frustration by berating James for hours. Finally, her anger boiled over and she declared, "This is all Emily's fault. She started this whole mess, so she's going to fix it. Who does she think she is, deciding to break up just like that? I won't allow it. I'll get the money from her myself." That afternoon, when most of the villagers had returned from the fields, James's mother marched to my house. She pounded on the door, shouting loudly enough for the entire village to hear. "Emily, get out here right now," she bellowed, hammering the door. I stayed calm, continuing to read inside until a crowd had gathered around my door. Once there was no space left for anyone else, I leisurely got up and opened the door. The moment she saw me, she raised her voice even louder. "Emily, what is the meaning of this? You promised to support my son's education, and now you suddenly break up with him? Do you have someone else on the side?" I had anticipated this and was ready. Stepping out, I slapped her across the face without hesitation. "Someone else? Why don't you ask your son what he's been up to?" I said coldly. He disappeared for months without a word, came back with bags full of gifts, and not a single thing for me. I took that as a silent agreement to break up, but now that tuition is due. "You remember me? What do you think I am, a fool? A piggy bank?" She gaped at me, but I wasn't done. "Let me make this clear. I don't have any money for you. If he can afford to buy watches and sewing machines, then he can figure out how to pay his own tuition." Unfazed, she crossed her arms and shouted back, "Watches and sewing machines don't cost that much. When he makes it big, won't you still benefit from it?" I laughed bitterly. "Benefit from him? Let me tell you something. If I've learned one thing, it's that I'll never let anyone take advantage of me again. You should feel lucky to have a college student like my son." James's mother sneered. "Do you think he'd even look at you if you didn't put in any effort? What do you bring to the table for someone like him to want you?" I let out a cold laugh. "If anything, it's him who wants me, not the other way around." Her face twisted in anger. "Nonsense. My son doesn't want you. Have you looked in a mirror lately? A village girl like you has no place being with my son." I didn't even bother responding. "Perfect, we don't want each other. Goodbye," I said, slamming the door shut. From outside I could hear her pounding on the door, screaming, "Emily, open this door right now. How dare you go back on your word?" As her shouting continued, a neighbor walking by stopped and loudly interjected, "Your son is the one who's done wrong, and you have the nerve to come here yelling at Emily." James's mother froze. The woman snorted, full of disdain. "My nephew saw James in the red light district when he was in town. Apparently, he didn't leave until the next morning with dark circles under his eyes. Looks like he had quite the night." Another villager chimed in, "Oh, that's why I saw a young man walking out of there when I went to buy clothes in town. I thought he looked familiar, and now I realize it was James." The two of them went back and forth, painting a vivid picture of James's escapades. Their words quickly stirred a buzz among the gathered villagers. "A fresh high school graduate already acting like this? What's he going to be like in a few years?" One murmured. "And here I thought he was a college student. Turns out he's just a disgrace hiding behind a degree. No wonder Tommy got that girl pregnant. This whole family is rotten." The crowd exchanged glances, their disdain clear. James's mother turned pale, her face a mix of embarrassment and fury. "Shut up. All of you, shut up!" she shouted, pushing her way out of the group before fleeing in humiliation. As the commotion outside quieted down, I opened my door, walked out, and handed two $2 bills to the two women who had spoken up. "Thank you, aunties," I said politely. One of them waved it off with a smile. "No need to thank us. We've had enough of that family. Besides, remember how they spread those false rumors about you back then? This is just karma." "Exactly," the other added, nudging her friend. "James always pretends to be honest, but deep down he's full of schemes. Who knows what he's really been up to?" They both laughed and promised to help again if needed before leaving. Meanwhile, James's mother stormed back home to find him still lying in bed. Her anger boiled over and she kicked him hard. "All you do is sleep. You've ruined my reputation." Completely startled awake, James sat up and rubbed his eyes. "What happened? Did you talk to Emily? What did she say?" "What did she say?" his mother snapped. "What about the nonsense you've been up to in town? Don't you have any shame?" Her voice was full of disgust, but she waved a hand dismissively. "Forget it. I won't even bring it up. The point is, I didn't get the tuition money." Hearing this, James shot up in panic. "What? You didn't get the money? What am I supposed to do now? What do you think?" I told her about the breakup. Honestly, if you brought her a small gift or spent a little money to appease her when you came back, things wouldn't have gotten this bad. James frowned deeply, his expression darkening. She's changed. Fine, I'll go talk to her myself. That evening, just as the sun was setting, James came to my house. Not wanting to draw attention, he avoided knocking on the door and instead picked up a handful of pebbles, throwing them at my window. After 10 or so throws, I finally opened the window. His face, drenched in sweat, immediately appeared. Emily, I didn't do anything to you. What's going on? Why are you treating me like this? I smiled at him and said calmly, Oh, is that what you think? That I'm mad because you didn't bring me a gift. Relieved, he nodded eagerly. Yes, that must be it, right? I'll pay your tuition first, and once I get to the city, I'll buy you whatever you want. How about that? I immediately shot him down. No. Since when do gifts come on credit? Besides, I need something now. He hesitated, his expression flickering with panic. But I don't have any money on me right now. He looked down and muttered. How about this? My family still has some sugar left. I'll bring it over for you. I raised my voice, deliberately cutting him off. You want to give me leftover sugar? Do you take me for a beggar, James? I moved to shut the window. Just leave already. We're done. There's no future for us. Wait, please don't. He quickly blocked the window with his arm, his voice desperate. Tell me what you want, and I'll do my best to give it to you. Resting my chin in my hand, I pretended to think deeply for a moment. Then, in an exaggeratedly casual tone, I said, All right, since we've been together for so many years, I'll keep it simple. Give me your family's bicycle, sewing machine, radio, and Tommy's watch. But don't worry, I don't need to keep them. Just leave them with me as collateral. If you do that, I'll pay your tuition. Otherwise, why should I give you money without any guarantee? His face turned pale as he stammered. But those things are for Tommy's wedding. Lily's family demanded the 3 rounds in one sound. How can I take the items they just received and give them to you? How would I explain that to Lily? Oh, you care about Lily that much, don't you? I sneered, unable to hold back my sarcasm. You're better suited for her anyway, annoyed. I pushed his arm off the window frame and slammed the window shut. Get lost, James. If you don't leave now, I'll call someone over to deal with you. Emily, let's talk for a minute. He pounded on the window, shouting loudly. All right, fine. Wait here, I'll go get the things for you. As soon as he left, I sent word to Lily's family through an aunt, telling them that James planned to take the wedding items bought for Tommy to give to me instead. The moment Lily heard this, she was furious. That night, she contacted Tommy and demanded he move the sewing machine, bicycle, and other valuable items to her parents' house immediately. Tommy, who always did whatever Lily said, especially since she was pregnant, didn't hesitate. The thought of James giving those things to me enraged him. Without a second thought, he and Lily's brother transported everything to Lily's family home that very night. The next day, when James approached Tommy to discuss taking the items, he discovered they were all gone. With only 5 days left before the school term started, James panicked. He grabbed Tommy by the collar, his face red with anger. Where are the things? I promised Emily I'd bring them to her today so she'd pay my tuition. Sorry, brother. Tommy, stronger from years of farm work, easily shoved James back a step. I promised Lily those items were for our wedding. I can't go back on my word now. James was fuming, his mind racing as beads of sweat formed on his forehead. He tried to compose himself, taking a deep breath before saying in a gentler tone, Tommy, listen to me. Let me borrow the things for now. I'll repay you double once I've made it big. But Tommy shook his head firmly. I understand, but Lily's pregnancy can't wait. How about you retake the exams next year? Tommy, who had never gone to school, didn't understand how difficult the college entrance exams were. James grew even more frantic, realizing he couldn't reason with Tommy. In desperation, he ran to find his mother, hoping she could convince Lily to change her mind. But Lily had already made it clear. Everything in your house will eventually be mine, so why should I let you give it to Emily? You gave those things to an outsider. James shouted, pacing angrily. I didn't even take them. I was just holding them for safekeeping. His mother had no response to that, so she cautiously suggested, Why don't we just forget about school this year? Your sister-in-law is already pregnant. If we take those things back now, it'll cause a huge fight with Tommy and her. You don't know a damn thing. James snapped, losing all pretense of being calm and educated. With only 4.5 days left before the start of school, he was sweating profusely as if his entire future was going up in flames. Desperate, James came back to my house. Emily, can I pay you back later? I'll give you interest or even write an IO. Once I get to college, I'll work part-time every month and pay you back double. Please just lend me the tuition. I shrugged, crossing my arms. You have nothing to offer me now. What do you expect me to do, be a charity case? I can barely make ends meet myself. Why would I fund your education? James's face twisted with anger, and he finally dropped all pretense of politeness. He started pounding on my window, shouting and screaming for me to come out. The noise was so loud that a neighbor, thinking he was about to harass me, ran to the fields to fetch some young men. Together, they dragged him off my property. Furious and humiliated, James stormed back to his mother's house. Get me Tommy's bride price, he demanded. I'll use it to pay my tuition and repay it to Lily later. Just tell her it's a loan. His mother shook her head firmly. Lily's pregnant with Tommy's child. I had someone check. She's definitely expecting. How can we ask for the bride price back now? It would be a disaster. She's already carrying his kid. Of course she'll marry into the family. James shouted, his temper flaring. Just get the money for me. Once I've made it in the city, I won't forget everything she's done for us. As luck would have it, Lily overheard this entire conversation. She stormed in, clutching her stomach, and glared at James and his mother. If you so much as mention returning the bride price, I'll abort this baby, she said coldly. This is your family's first grandchild. If you want to be known as the family that killed its future, then go ahead. You decide what's more important. Her words left James's mother in a panic. She grabbed James by the sleeve and begged quietly, let it go, please. It's your fault for spending all the scholarship money. If you'd saved some, we wouldn't be in this mess. James's face turned red with rage, his fists clenched. I did everything for you, he shouted at Lily, his anger spilling over. I used my scholarship money to buy things for your wedding. Now I can't go to college all because of you. And what about the future? When I make it big in the city, won't you benefit from it? Lily looked at him coldly. Who knows about the future? Right now, the bride price is in my hands, and I'm not giving it back. End of story. James turned to his mother for support, but she had clearly taken Lily's side. To her, the prospect of a first grandson far outweighed James's university acceptance letter. He stared at the two of them, his expression darkening as frustration boiled inside him. Short-sighted fools, he muttered under his breath. With only 3 days left before school started, James should have been on a train headed to university by now. Instead, he paced back and forth in the courtyard, his chest heaving with anger and despair. His thoughts churned as he tried to come up with a solution, but no matter how he spun it, there was no clear way out. He started going door to door, knocking and bowing his head to beg for tuition money. However, because his family had flaunted their wealth too much in the past and were not well liked in the village, most people turned him away. The rumors about him frequenting the red light district in the city didn't help. Either many villagers mocked him, some sneering openly, while others simply claimed they were struggling themselves and shut their doors in his face. Only a few families, feeling some pity, gave him symbolic amounts, just enough to show some sympathy. After a whole morning of begging, James's forehead was bruised and bleeding, but all he managed to collect was enough for travel expenses, still far from what he needed for tuition. Exhausted, he sat on the ground, defeated, his spirit completely crushed. Word travels fast in a village, and soon an aunt came to inform me about James's next plan. He's scheming to trick you into going to the old storage room behind Mr. Lee's house, she whispered. Once you're there, he plans to trap you and force you into marrying him. That way, whether you agree to pay for his tuition or not, you'll have no choice but to go along with it. I smiled calmly, thanked her, and handed her $2 as a token of appreciation. The aunt left, and not long after, James's mother showed up in my yard. Her face unusually pleasant, her voice sweet as honey. Emily, about you and James. He knows he made a mistake. All right, he handled things poorly, but tomorrow he's heading off to university. And who knows when he'll be back again. He really wants to see you before he leaves. He's waiting for you at the old storage room behind Mr. Lee's house. Can't you at least meet him for old time's sake? I stopped cracking sunflower seeds and glanced at her lazily. So he managed to gather enough tuition money? Yes, he did. He managed to pull it all together yesterday, she said, her enthusiasm bubbling over as she shoved a can of orange-flavored soda into my hands. Here, James told me to bring this for you. It's from the city, really good stuff. Take it with you and enjoy it on the way. She practically ran off after completing her task, as if relieved to have checked it off her list. I weighed the can in my hand. It was indeed a rare treat, something I might have once foolishly taken as a token of his affection, but not anymore. As I stepped outside, I spotted Lily passing by my house, smirking. I handed her the soda. Here for you, a gift from James. Her face twisted in confusion as she eyed me suspiciously. Why would he give me this? What do you mean? I grinned, clearly enjoying her discomfort. James wants to get back together with me. He even brought me a bunch of these sodas from the city. I figured you probably haven't had anything this nice before, so I'm giving you one to try. Lily's expression darkened as I leaned closer, lowering my voice just enough to sting. I bet Tommy never gave you anything this fancy, huh? She scoffed, snatched the can from my hand and popped it open, taking 2 big gulps. She spat back. You sly fox. I don't know what tricks you pulled to get James wrapped around your finger, but let me tell you this. If you think you're going to marry him, don't forget that half of what he earns will still go to Tommy and me. Really? I raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. James doesn't seem to think so. He told me all his money is mine. Oh, and he mentioned that not only was his high school scholarship paid for, but his university tuition is free too. You know, he said he only asked you all for money to use as my dowry. What? Lily's face flushed with anger. I leaned in closer, lowering my voice conspiratorially. Oh, and one more thing. The stuff he bought you with his scholarship barely cost him anything. The rest he gave it all to me yesterday. Don't believe me? See for yourself. He's waiting for me right now at the old storage room behind Mr. Lee's house. Go check if you don't believe me. Lily, who was always quick to anger, bit the bait immediately. Her face twisted with fury as she growled. Wait here. I'm going to see for myself if what you're saying is true. I'll make him pay for giving our money to an outsider. She stormed off, soda can in hand, but not before slamming it into the ground, sending it skittering into the ditch. I contacted the village aunt and asked her to gather some people in half an hour to catch someone at the old storage room behind Mr. Lee's house. I didn't know what James might have put in that orange soda, but it was likely one of the usual tricks. The old storage room was dark and enclosed, with only a sliver of light coming in through a small corner window. Faces were nearly impossible to make out, and since Lily and I had similar builds, even if James realized it wasn't me, just being caught alone with his sister-in-law would be enough to ruin him. Meanwhile, I stayed comfortably in my room, snacking on sunflower seeds and listening carefully for any commotion. Half an hour passed, and the village seemed quiet, without any unusual activity. I patiently waited another 20 minutes before I saw a group of about a dozen people hurrying past my house. A while later, I noticed several young men carrying a stretcher toward the van at the village entrance. Following them was James's mother, wailing hysterically. You beast! That's your sister-in-law. How could you do this? Her cries echoed, mixed with James's screams and Tommy's enraged shouts as he slammed things around. Curious, I leaned out to ask the aunt who had come over. She gave me a knowing look, her expression laced with amusement. Glancing around to make sure no one else was nearby, she covered her mouth and whispered with a chuckle. What a mess! That college boy from the James family assaulted his sister-in-law. She's pregnant and now she's bleeding badly. I covered my mouth in feigned shock. What? That's insane. Was it consensual or forced? It looked forced, the aunt said, clicking her tongue in disapproval. When we got there, the poor girl was unconscious. James seemed totally oblivious, still grinning like a fool. Who knows if she passed out from the assault or sheer fright. Not long after, the police arrived and took James into custody on the spot. His mother collapsed to the ground, wailing. Who called the cops? This is a family matter. What a disaster. That evening, my mother barged into my house, screaming at the top of her lungs, "You wretched girl, get out here." I calmly opened the door. The recent events had turned the village into a buzzing hive of gossip, with small groups gathering everywhere to discuss the scandal. Her face was twisted with rage as she shrieked, "You gave that orange soda to Lily. She's pregnant and you poisoned her. How could you be so cruel?" She lunged at me, grabbing my neck with both hands in a desperate grip. I pushed her off lightly, and she stumbled to the ground. Smiling, I said, "Oh, so you admit there was something in the soda? Was it your doing or was it James's?" Her eyes widened in horror. "You're talking nonsense. I didn't put anything in the drink." "Then it must have been James," I said, holding up the soda can. "I picked it up after you left. If there's anything in it, the police can easily find out."
"No.
"Don't let them test it," she screamed, lunging at me again. But this time I stepped aside, revealing the police officer standing behind me. I handed the soda can to the officer and said firmly, "Officers, I'd like to report a crime. My ex-boyfriend James attempted to drug and harm me." James's mother froze, her face drained of color. She stumbled back 3 steps, stammering, "It wasn't my son. He's a college student. You can't arrest him. It was me. I did it. If someone has to be arrested, take me." At the officer's command, she was taken away, still sobbing and shouting incoherently. The rest of the story I heard from the village head. James confessed to everything during his interrogation. The soda had indeed been spiked with a sedative. Lily, who had drunk the entire can, passed out shortly after entering the storage room. James, unable to see clearly in the dim light, mistook her for me and assaulted her. Lily, who was less than 3 months pregnant, suffered severe complications from the assault. This time Lily experienced massive bleeding. The small-town clinic couldn't handle such a critical condition, and the delay in transporting her to the hospital only worsened the situation. By the time she arrived, the baby was already gone. Lily barely survived, but the damage left her unlikely to have children in the future. The incident caused an irreparable rift between James and Tommy. They openly turned against each other, their relationship completely shattered. However, James refused to admit that he had spiked the drink. He claimed his mother had only passed the message to me but wasn't involved in the drugging itself. In the end, to reduce her son's sentence, James's mother took full responsibility for adding the sedative. James was sentenced to 3 years in prison for assaulting Lily, while his mother received a 2-year sentence for spiking the drink. With the verdict, James's dream of being a college student was completely destroyed. Tommy and Lily eventually got married, but the marriage was far from happy. Tommy couldn't move past what had happened between Lily and his brother, and resented the fact that Lily could no longer have children. The two of them fought constantly, loud, vicious arguments that often ended with the sound of pots and dishes breaking, their quarrels audible from far away. Peace was a rare visitor in their household. Meanwhile, my semester grades came out. I ranked first in my class and 5th in the entire grade. With 2 more years of hard work, getting into a top university wasn't out of reach. In my previous life, I had staked everything on James. I gave him everything I had, supporting him unconditionally, believing that when he became successful, I would share in his glory. But in the end, he became a traitor. Like Chan Shimmy, and I met a tragic death. This time around, I finally understood relying on others is futile. Mountains can crumble and trees can fall. Trusting anyone else is no match for relying on myself. I had endured the worst in my previous life. Whatever hardships lay ahead, I would face them head-on. Nothing could be more difficult than what I had already survived.